Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode, the first podcast, the first everything of about skateboarding. Now, if you're new here, which everyone's got to be new here because this is the first episode. So my name is Sean, and I'm gonna kind of give you this is my intro episode to this whole podcast. This whole entire about skateboarding experience. I'm gonna tell you why I made this podcast and YouTube channel and what the whole goal of this whole thing is, and kind of go from there with it as far as the first episode goes. So again, my name is Sean. So I personally wanted to create, in the state of the world right now, I feel like there's a lot of, not to get political here right off the bat, but just to get off, to put it all into perspective what this podcast is about. And this YouTube channel is that I grew up skateboarding at a very, very young age. I started skateboarding when I lived in Florida, and at the age of 3 or 4 years old, I think it was when I got my first skateboard. I'm in my late 30s now, and I've been skateboarding ever since. I have not ever been professional or anywhere near that level of being that good at all in any way. But I have skateboarded as a lifestyle, as a hobby, as a just health event, as far as like improving my health too as I've gotten older. And just, and had a family and that kind of stuff too. And just given the state of the world right now, of everything, both political and non-political, just as far as like all that stuff, I remember thinking about recently about how I wanted to have more positivity in my life. And I thought back to when I was a kid, and really the areas of my life that brought me positivity and being happy was skateboarding. And I remember as I got older and went through my teenage years and my early 20s, how that never really dissipated overall from a skateboarding lifestyle, even community of skateboarding perspective. And I always appreciated that about the skateboarding community, is that it's a very, very open, accepting, and very open community towards everyone. And whether it's your first day on a board or just whatever you're doing within the world of skateboarding, if you're doing photography for it or filming someone and for a video, it doesn't matter. Skateboarding has always been, as a community, a very inclusive and open and welcoming place. And all my heroes, for the most part, in my life have come from the skateboarding community, as far as like their determination, their professionalism, their talent, for sure, obviously. And for me, that just is a big, big thing to want to push more into the world. And one thing I've noticed is that there's not too many, like this is, until you did this, why I started this podcast and also this YouTube channel, is that I feel like there's a few, but there's not many, real, I was a solid skateboarding YouTube channels about the lifestyle of skateboarding and the community of it all, and also the mentality, the psychology. Again, I'm not a psychologist either, to put that out there. I'm not a psychologist. I enjoy discussing and thinking about the psychology behind skateboarding, about what pushes people to start doing it in the first place, what makes people want to keep doing it, what makes people want to roll up to like a 30, 40, not 40, like a large bunch of stairs with a railing on it and jump over it over and over and over again while getting hurt possibly or injured really badly, and just enjoying that fulfillment of landing a trick or not landing a trick and coming back to it later on and doing it later on. And there's just a certain mentality in skateboarding that does not exist the same way as that in other areas of sports necessarily, or other areas of life that make you want to do it over and over and over again. And it's what makes people, stick with the whole thing of skateboarding for their entire lives at some point, or as long as they can, until they get, injured to where they can't do it anymore, but then they still stay supported within the skateboarding community as well. So that's why I wanted to make a channel and just a podcast about the whole experience. And I will be sharing very personal stories about myself skateboarding. Again, I've been skateboarding for over 30 years now, since I was a kid. Again, I've never been professional. I've never done contests. I never was sponsored. I wanted all of that at some point in my life. I did, and I'll go through all that too in other episodes. But I wanted to just really, again, make a real kind of visceral, honest podcast about that experience. And it's about, I have an idea to where I want to also do like kind of like reaction videos, where I want to play some of my favorite skateboarding videos ever made, as well as some ones that you guys can comment below in the comments below for YouTube as well, and we can watch them together, and I'll react to them, and we can kind of enjoy them together. And I want to eventually, if this podcast and this channel gets to a big enough standpoint on its own from YouTube and all that, to where enough people are watching as a community, I will even reach out to some skateboarders on social media if I can, and have them jump on it for interviews, just because I think it'd be fun and interesting. So again, I'm not trying to take over or try and compete in any way with what like Tony Hawk is doing and what other people are doing that already have podcasts, because I'm not anywhere near their level from that perspective. So this is really from the perspective of someone who just is a lifelong skateboarding passionate person that has been in love with the whole idea of skateboarding and everything that involves, and the emotionality behind it, again, the psychology behind it, and the overall perspective of what it brings to and enhances to your life if you let it, all those things. So I'm gonna kind of now dive into a little bit more about myself, just a little bit more, and again, my small history of skateboarding, and just my history of skateboarding overall since I was a kid. Because again, I grew up in Florida. I'm in the Midwest now in the U.S., and I got my first board because I remember going to the beach as a kid with my mom, and I started to want to do that on land essentially as a 3 or 4 year old, and it was never like super intense overall for what it was. But I basically remember getting a toy skateboard from, I don't know where it was from at that point in time, but I remember getting a toy skateboard from one of the holidays, and I was about 4 years old, and it was a really big board back then. And because obviously my mom did not want to get me like a professional skateboard at that age, because it wouldn't be worth it. But I got a little toy skateboard, and it was just more about really at that time translating my balance over from learning how to surf a little bit. Like, and then when I say surf, I mean surf on really, really small waves. It was like in the shallow end of the ocean. It was not like I was going deep in the ocean in any way to kind of like to surf in that out there. It was nothing like that, not that age. But I learned how to. I even learned how to skimboard in the ocean, if you know what that means. Like where you throw a board down in like the on the beach, so to speak, kind of like ride along on like the little on the current essentially inside the ocean a little bit. So I kind of did that in the ocean too. But as far as skateboarding goes, I got a little toy skateboard, and I basically would, just ride it. I wouldn't do tricks, nothing crazy like that. I would just trying to get my balance down and learn how to ride a skateboard and learn how to push on a skateboard, and that opened up a new level of life for me, so to speak, because I remember just enjoying it, and it made me feel very, very free, to where I could get on a board basically and ride almost anywhere in the world at that time that I wanted to, quote unquote. And it made me feel very free and very open to what life would give me, as far as like just having the opportunity to ride a board anywhere I wanted to and not have to walk. Because for whatever reason, I didn't ride bikes. I didn't really enjoy bike riding. It was always about skateboarding at that point. And as I got older, like when I was turning 7, 8, 9 years old and that kind of thing, I got a little bit more, I don't want to say aggressive, but more passionate and obsessive over skateboarding for sure. I wasn't anywhere near what I've read about like Tony Hawk in interviews, where he was like it wasn't like a day one thing of it being like an obsession from day one. It was nothing like that. But it was definitely a thing where as soon as I got my first board, I enjoyed it a lot, and it gave me a new perspective on life and a new enjoyment as a hobby. And I didn't know about any skate parks, or that a skate park wasn't even a thing back then. But I enjoyed just riding around my house, and I enjoyed just riding around just on sidewalks in the streets, and just learn how to do that as I got older, of course. And it became my until I got a car, I would say, like when I was like 16, it definitely became my new primary method of transportation overall, as far as like just how I got around town. And when I say town, I mean like my little area of like going to a gas station or whatever it was. Now, back then, I wasn't really an intensive skater yet. I didn't go to skate shops. I didn't really go to anything hardcore like that. It was more of just like I did it for fun, out of enjoyment, just as a hobby. But what happened was that mentally I changed a little bit as far as like how I enjoyed it, because it became a thing where I started to learn or see tricks, because I remember subscribing to, I think it was Trans World Skateboarding Magazine. It wasn't Thrasher or anything like that yet, but it was Trans World Skateboarding Magazine, because I saw it at an airport one day, and I was like, oh, there's an actual magazine for skateboarding of people doing crazy intense tricks down crazy stuff. And that I didn't know existed yet. It was not on TV yet. There was no X Games, because again, this was the 90s, or early 90s. So there was no X Games yet. There was no SLS Street League like there is now. There's no YouTube, there's no internet. So all I saw, I remember seeing in the airport when I went on vacation once, was a Trans World Skateboarding magazine that show, I don't even know who's on the cover of it. I don't remember like anything like that, but I remember seeing it at the airport, and it was like $3 at the time, and my mom bought it for me, and I opened it up and was just immediately blown away by everything in there, because I didn't know that any of those things were possible on a skateboard. And everyone in there looked a lot older, even though some of them weren't. I mean, at that time I was like 7 or 8, 9 years old. Maybe I was, I was growing into almost becoming a preteen. And I remember that it was very, very just, it was overwhelming because I didn't know any of those tricks were possible. I didn't know what a trick was. Again, at that point I was riding, having balance, and just learning how to ride a skateboard overall. That was it. So at that point, that unlocked a new area for me where I was like, okay, well, if this is possible on a skateboard, then I want to learn all that. And the sad thing about my mentality, though, is that I have always been pretty much a very, I don't want to say timid skater or person overall, but I've never been someone who like seeks out, challenges like that in a way where I didn't like want to necessarily like, go throw myself down a 20 stair thing just to ollie it or anything like that. I've never been that kind of person. So that was always kind of the inhibitor for me as far as skateboarding goes for like learning new things, was that I would do much more of a baby step kind of thing. Even on land, like I would be scared of falling. I would still fall, but I'd be scared of falling. So I remember the first day, I don't know what age I was, but I remember the first day of trying to learn how to ollie and how it really racked my brain because I didn't know the idea of like trying to like do so much footwork at once, but also like combining it all together, you know what I mean? So it was a weird thing where like, I didn't know how to like not only ride along, but also how to like snap the tail, raise my foot up, and then jump all at the same time. It really took my brain some serious adjustment time to learn how to do all this together with my feet. And it took me a long time to learn. It wasn't like within a day. It took me like I think a few weeks to learn how to do it correctly and appropriately. And again, there was no Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. There was no YouTube tutorials. Like I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know of any skate parks around. I didn't know what a skate park was yet. So all those things were brand new to me as far as technique and how to do it the right way. So I didn't know if I was doing it correctly, but I enjoyed doing it. But I fell a lot, and that's what scared me about skateboarding initially was how to learning how to deal with a fall and really how to just deal with that pain in some ways and how to get through it and how to and all that. And I remember my mom at the time being like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because you're falling a lot and you're getting bruises and all that." And I mean, I didn't see it any differently than like playing sports really. But I remember it being like, I was like, "Do I want to continue this?" But I still really, really, again, enjoyed all there was within skateboarding as far as like just how to again the freedom it gave me and the feeling I got when I did learn how to do or land a trick and have it be clean. I love that feeling. That kept me going. So I remember I learned an ollie first, and then the first flip trick that I remember doing at the time was a heel flip. And it was because I did it on accident, because I did an ollie the wrong way, and where I kicked the board instead of like sliding my foot. And that threw me off too. And the one trick that I still have problems with to this day, which is super, super sad, and this is where I come across as vulnerable, is a kickflip. Because I saw a kickflip in transworld skateboarding, but the idea of flipping because I ride goofy footed, so the idea of flipping the board to the right was so not normal nature to me, and it took me another like probably 2 months. I don't know the time. It was a long time for me to learn how to even flip a kickflip. And so that's why like even these days when I see someone doing like throwing a kickflip down like nothing, it doesn't upset me, but it's almost like incredibly frustrating, because not that I need to compare myself to other skaters. That's a bad idea. Don't ever do that. But just the idea of flipping your foot the other way and having it flip the other way and having it be quick and solid and a quick flip and catching it, that was never something that I could really do fluidly. Like eventually I got it down. Like I could do a kickflip, not every time, and all that. And that's probably why I did never become professional or get sponsored, because I couldn't figure it out. But those were the first two tricks I ever really kind of learned overall, was how to do a heel flip and a kick flip. And not even a pop shove it. That's what's weird. I didn't know how to do pop shove it until later on. I didn't know what it was, because again, back then there was no real easy way of learning how to do things. And then I remember when I got a little bit older even more, I remember I was like 12, 13, 14 years old, I learned that there was actually a cement skate park near where I lived. And this is Florida, so it's very, very humid, hot and humid all year round. So I remember going to a skate park in Florida. It wasn't like a big like Kona or nothing huge like that, like with a whole admission to it. It was a free cement community skate park that had like, I remember like maybe it had like 2 sections on there of transitions, and had like 2 quarter pipes that were separated out to drop in on. Those scared me too. Again, I was very timid at that age, so it was one of those things where I was very scared to see everything like that. But it also was very exciting, because I remember loving to see other skateboarders, that there was other skateboarders, because in my own neighborhood, I for the most part, I skated by myself, which I felt fine with. I was very okay and content with my own solitude of skateboarding by myself and being okay with that. And but when I saw other skaters in the same community, that also definitely blew my mind that there was other people doing the same thing. Even though I saw magazines of it, but that was kind of like a movie for me, where I was like, okay, like that might as well be like a Hollywood movie. So the idea of seeing other skaters within my community changed my life again, because I feel like when you meet people in skateboarding in your local area, that for sure opens up those friendships without even realizing that they become friendships, because you might just end up talking to them at the skate park only, and then getting to know them a little bit here and there. But then after you see them, more and more, and sometimes every day, if you go there every day to a certain extent, then you just build up that relationship naturally. And I feel like that's one of the most important parts of skateboarding, is just that community basis for it too. So I remember like discovering the skate park in my local area, and at that point in time, I remember just trying to learn how to drop in normally, and also how to ollie on a transition. Not like a big gap, nothing like that, nothing super awesome like that at that age, but it was more about how to, again, just learn how to ride a transition, learn how to ride over a ramp and get a little bit of air. And then I also on accident discovered one of my favorite tricks of all time still, which is a board slide. As basic as it might sound, and as basic as it is, I was trying to learn how to do a 50-50 on a rail, like on like a really low like bar rail that was like maybe 2 feet off the ground, or a foot, I think it was actually. And I tried to do 50-50, and my board slid off, and then I landed in a board slide. But I didn't like land it, but just the feeling of sliding on a board unlocked another level of like whoa-ness to me, like emotion. I was like, where again, it was more like euphoria. And that, luckily, the board slide, like the front side board slide, just going forward, that only luckily took me about a day to learn, because it was just really easy. It felt easier to do, because you could just pop onto it, ride it, and then just turn 90 degrees back, and you got it for the most part. And I love that. Some things in skateboarding are super, super easy sometimes, and some things take months or years to learn. So again, that's kind of like how I kind of started overall. And that's kind of what I wanted to kind of start off with for now, as far as like this podcast is just like a really, really, kind of how I grew up with skateboarding, the first tricks I learned, and how I felt about it. So I'll kind of end it there for now for this episode, for this first episode of the podcast and for the channel. But again, I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit to you guys and give a small history of myself with skateboarding, and the first stuff I learned, and the first board I bought, which I'll dive into more down the road. But again, this is the first episode. So if you like this kind of content on YouTube especially, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for many, many more. If you're listening to this and again, this will be on also both Apple Podcasts and also Spotify for streaming the audio only. So if you're into all that, go subscribe across the board and enjoy it all there. And just, thanks for watching. If you like it, again, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. But otherwise, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'll see you guys all in the next episode.